We are moving now from Canada to Australia, where Shirley founded FleetGuru, a global AI-powered B2B SaaS platform that streamlines fleet maintenance, supplier payments, and repair authorizations. Today, Shirley is not going to share a story, nor will he sell a service. He will demonstrate live how Fleet AI agents can ease your professional life, save time, increase uptime, whether you are based in Australia, in Bangkok, in Japan, or in Indonesia, wherever you run your fleet. So buckle up for this interactive experience. I think it's really that, an interactive experience. Ladies and gentlemen, Shirley, the founder and the CEO of FleetGuru.
Hello everyone. It's fantastic to be back here at Fleet APAC 2026. I'd like to thank the Nexus team for the invitation. And to Stephen's point, today is going to be an interactive presentation, so wish me luck, because live demos are always a high-risk game. So I guess my goal today is to present how advanced AI technologies can unify fleet maintenance operations across a region as complex and fragmented as APAC. And so the title of this talk or demo, Fleet is a Universal Language, AI is the translator, is designed to provoke thought and understanding around how we can combine technologies to solve some of the local problems. So bear with me, because there's a fun part to this which is very interactive, but I need to set the scene. So what do I mean by universal language? Every vehicle has a plate in every country. In most advanced and many developing countries, you can go from plate to VIN, and where you can't access the VIN digitally, a service provider can enter a VIN, which we can then translate to what we call a MID code, which actually just stands for Model ID. Now, the Model ID is the key to the service and repair data from every manufacturer. And whilst there are different coding systems, every manufacturer can provide service and repair information across the scheduled maintenance for distance and time, inspections, repair procedures for every one of the major systems. We can get all of the body and system procedure data for airbags, electrical systems, ADAS, and configuration, and all of the electrical and diagnostic systems, including the DTC workflows, all the way through to the wiring diagrams. Every manufacturer provides this, and it is universal. Yep. There are variant models in different countries and variant procedures, but this information is universal. In Australia and New Zealand, we have a data set that has 46,000 MID codes. Remember, we do retail and fleet. And in those 46,000 MID codes, there's between 150 to 300 maintenance or operation repairs per vehicle. So you're talking about a data set that's anywhere from 6.5 to 14 million unique service and repair tasks that include the labor time. So the secret here is, if you know what needs to be done, and you know how long it takes, then you can ask a repairer, what is your agreed fleet rate? And what are the parts cost? And are there any agreed markups? And you can calculate the cost of any service and repair in real time without a human. All right, so, and bear with me, because there's three parts to setting this up. The next is the maintenance operations. What actually happens when a vehicle comes out of service and needs a service or repair? This process is a bit more complicated than you first might assume. We begin with the asset class. What is it? Is it a passenger vehicle? Is it light commercial? Is it heavy? Is it plant or equipment? We then need to identify the vehicle. And so the registration becomes the key, which we get to the VIN, and then we can get the configuration data and the build data. Once we know that, we can start to diagnose and make decisions about what happens to that vehicle. Is it a scheduled task, such as maintenance, or is it an unplanned repair, which can often be triggered by a DTC code, or a symptom that's being reported, or an inspection? Once we know that, we can decide on the services that need to be done, whether it's repairs or tyres or scheduled servicing, and then we can look at the procedures. How long is it going to take to remove, replace, inspect, adjust, or configure that repair? Then we add the parts and the consumables, some of which will be OEM or aftermarket, and before you know it, we can generate a quote, we can submit it for digital scrutiny, we can get it approved, or run it through business rules from the fleet management companies. Sometimes we have to push it to a human review because it's a bit more complicated. And then finally we get an approval. The service provider can then do the work, record the timesheets, update the compliance report, and before you know it, we're sending an invoice, claiming any warranty work, paying the service provider, and then dealing with the tax or any client on charges. There's a little bit involved, but the final part of this, and this is probably the most challenging part that we see in regions like APAC, is what is the difference, or what do we mean when we talk about unstructured versus structured data? So unstructured data is human voice, yeah, a telephone call, but it could also be a fax, an invoice, an email, a text message. Every service provider is probably running different software. Every fleet is as well. And so the challenge is that normal computer systems find it very difficult to read this because you can't put it into a structured, repeatable database. It's context nuanced, there's a lot of duplication, and traditionally it's very complicated. A structured database, on the other hand, is completely controlled. It's organized and it's formatted into a predefined schema. It's easily searchable, and it can deliver quantifiable and repeatable strict outcomes, yeah, consistent rules. So AI, and the brilliant thing about AI, and the reason it's been so transformative, is because AI can read and interpret unstructured data to get the human context, to then be able to give you outcomes that are meaningful, and in many cases brilliant. The challenge, though, is if you ask an LLM, whichever one's your favourite, the same question 3 different ways, you'll get 3 slightly different answers. And that's not practical when you're talking about operational situations as critical as fleet maintenance and compliance. So the way to solve that problem is to actually start thinking about how can we take the intelligence and the learning and the context that we get from an LLM and then control the outcome so that we can have a predictable and repeatable and accurate result. So they call that RAG-enabled AI. So basically the long and the short is you take the unstructured data input, which could be a conversation. It could be asked in many different ways. We understand the context of it and we can interpret it to a repeatable outcome. That's the simplistic version. So in our particular case, we're sitting on a fairly significant data set. We've got the 46,000 model variants. We've got over 11,000 repair operations, 11 million, sorry, and over 100,000 parts that we're tracking. And we've also got the historical data from FleetGuru's operations, which is now at 3.2 million quotes that have been authorised, over 2 billion part price changes, and 180,000 labour rate changes. So we've taken all of that, and we have built what we call a service agent. So I'm going to have to give you a bit of context here. I'll get you to switch over. We're going to introduce Mick in a sec. So Mick is our maintenance intelligent Copilot. And the cool thing about Mick is we're training him to do a whole bunch of great things. So one of the things that's very common, both English and non-English native speaking countries, is that a lot of maintenance authorisations happen over the phone or by fax or by email. And so this particular use case is, could we use AI to receive those calls, interpret those calls, and create a digital structured quote? Hey Mick, you there?
I'm here, Eden. Hello to everyone in the room. Great to be on stage with you.
So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are?
Gladly. My name is Mick. I'm FleetGuru's AI maintenance Copilot. Technically speaking, I'm an advanced AI agent. But think of me as the nerdy data guy on your fleet team.
So I had to tell the organisers of Fleet APAC that you have a PhD in vehicle maintenance. Is that true?
That's kind of true, although my education didn't come from a university. I've been trained on the entire history of the AutoGuru and FleetGuru platforms. I've analyzed billions of dollars worth of maintenance and repair data, captured over 15 years of AutoGuru's vehicle servicing in Australia. As you can see on the screen, I've ingested data from 3.4 million online transactions, $1.2 billion in services and repairs. I've tracked 180,000 labor rate changes and 2 billion part price changes from 12,800 approved fleet repairers.
Now that's quite a data set. So if you know so much about maintenance, how are fleets using this today?
Today, I'm used for 4 main things. I calculate service and parts pricing models, I analyze maintenance quotes and fleet controller approvals, I provide vehicle maintenance history insights, and I can approve work orders where the rules allow it.
So Mick, I want you to assume that I'm a service provider and I'm calling a fleet management company to get a work order approval.
That is not a problem. You can start by telling me the vehicle registration and the services it requires.
So the vehicle is, Rego, is XN73TT. It needs a logbook service, a fuel filter replacement, and a wiper blade replacement.
One moment while I look that up. Got it. So we are looking at a logbook service, a fuel filter replacement, and a wiper blade replacement. The registration is X for X-ray, N for November, 7, 3, T for Tango, T for Tango. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Excellent. One moment while I look that up. I have found the vehicle. It is an Isuzu Ute MUX wagon with a 3-liter diesel engine and an automatic transmission. I just need a few more details to finish this off. Could you tell me the vehicle's year and whether it is a 2- or 4-wheel drive?
It's a 2018 and it's a 4-wheel drive.
Perfect. Just one last thing. What is the odometer reading on the vehicle?
93,000 kilometers.
Perfect. That's everything I need. The job has been submitted through FleetGuru for maintenance authorization, and you'll be able to review and adjust it from there. There we go.
Did you notice that it priced it then? It's pretty cluey. Hey Mick, I'm here with my good friend Kota and Mike. Kota is Japanese and he's going to demonstrate that technology in Japanese, and then Mike is going to finish the authorization in French.
That is not a problem. I speak 77 languages, so the language barrier won't be an issue. You can start by telling me the vehicle registration and the services it requires.
すいません、日本語でもいいですか？
はい、もちろんです。日本語でお手伝いいたします。車両の登録番号とご希望の整備内容をお知らせいただけますでしょうか。
はい、登録ナンバーは 057YSW。サービスは、定期点検整備、ワイパーブレード交換、あとはバッテリー交換です。
承知いたしました。ご希望のサービスは定期点検整備、ワイパーブレード交換、そしてバッテリー交換ですね。登録番号は 057YSW でよろしいでしょうか。確認のため車両情報を紹介いたします。少々お待ちください。お待たせいたしました。トヨタのヤリスハッチバックですね。1点ご確認ですが、こちらの車両の年式をお教えいただけますでしょうか。また現在の走行距離も合わせてお願いいたします。
Excusez-moi, Mick, pouvez-nous continuer en français?
Bien sûr, je peux continuer en français. Pour récapituler, nous avons une Toyota Yaris hatchback avec le numéro d'immatriculation 057, Y comme Yankee, S comme Sierra, W comme Whisky. Pourriez-vous me donner l'année du modèle ainsi que le kilométrage au compteur, s'il vous plaît?
Oui, l'année de modèle c'est 2019 et le kilométrage de modèle c'est 93 333 km.
Parfait, c'est tout ce dont j'ai besoin. La demande a été soumise via FleetGuru pour l'autorisation d'entretien et vous pourrez la consulter et l'ajuster à partir de là. Voilà qui est fait.
Voilà qui est fait.
Well, that was pretty extraordinary. We'll flick back to the presentation if we can, and we'll come back to Mick in a second. So what you just saw then was what we call a service agent, which can basically interpret unstructured data via voice, text, fax, or an email, and convert it into structured data. The great thing is these technologies, which there are multiple providers in the market developing multilingual tech, can speak so many languages. Like, we are covering 92% of Asia, including 13 Indian dialects, and pretty much all the major languages, as well as Europe, Portuguese, which is predominantly Brazil, and Spanish, which covers most of South America. So what we're mixing here, a variety of technologies, from multilingual tech to LLMs to RAG-enabled data integrations back to structured databases, which we've developed. All right, I'm going to switch hats. Unfortunately, I don't have another hat. I'm going to put my fleet manager hat on for a sec. There was a very large global study recently done by Fleet.io, which is the largest survey that I'm aware of, that pulled out the top 2 concerns or pressures for fleet managers, predominantly US, but let's just say these ideas are fairly consistent with what we're seeing here at Fleet APAC, based on the surveys that have been called out in the IFMI and the advisory group. Cost or rising costs, and regulation and compliance. So the beautiful thing about AI in this scenario that's RAG enabled is that we have just converted what is traditionally a very challenging, very manual, very localized team-based solution to managing maintenance to structured data. That allows us to then again use AI to be able to analyze those quotes and to start to give you an understanding of how AI can better manage cost controls. So we'll flick over again. Hey Mick, I want you to assume I'm a fleet manager and I work for Fleet X.
Sure thing. I'm in your seat.
So for everyone in the crowd, can you please tell me how big my fleet is?
You have 850 vehicles under management. About 560 are passenger vehicles, 158 light commercials, 84 heavy commercials, and 14 trailers, with a small tail of cranes, plant, and other equipment making up the rest.
Mick, can you bring up all the jobs you flagged today and show me everything I need to look at?
You've got 12 items flagged as outliers in your review queue. The one I'd start with, a brake pad part on a 2021 Iveco Daily. The quote came in at $191.40 on a part where the peer median across 860 similar jobs sits at $162. Not extreme, but on a commodity part, it's drifting outside the norm. Want me to walk through it?
Yeah, let's start with that job.
This is a brake pad part on the 2021 Iveco Daily. The quote shows $191.40 for a single line, where peers settle around $162.23 across 860 transactions. A small premium per item, but the volume is what makes it worth a clarifying call before approval. Confidence 90 out of 100.
I agree, Mick. Do you mind reaching out to the service provider and clarifying that part price?
Sure thing. I left a message on FleetGuru and will ping you when we hear back.
So you can clearly analyze part pricing. What other patterns are you tracking?
A different pattern. On a 2018 Keynote 300 series, a labor for rear brake pad replacement was submitted for approval. The part itself priced cleanly. The labor line's what's running a bit long. About an hour, where the peer median across 927 similar jobs comes in under 50 minutes. Still inside the normal range for a fiddly job, but worth verifying before sign-off.
So these are both road vehicles. Can you track similar patterns in equipment quotes?
Same coverage beyond road vehicles. On a 2021 equipment fridge, the refrigeration unit repair quote is about 30% above the peer median across 159 similar jobs. Confidence 95. The fleet includes refrigeration units, generators, trailers. I tracked the lot.
Mick, this is exactly what I need. If you took these 12 jobs, what would be my total exposure for today?
Across the 12 items in the review queue, the quoted total sits about $400 above the peer benchmark. Small per booking, but the pattern's worth tracking across a fleet year.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thanks, Mick.
Anytime. Happy to keep digging when you're ready.
So that is just a little sample of the kind of vibrant cost analysis in real time that AI can do when it's dealing with structured data. And if you think about that variance across 12 jobs for 850 vehicles, noting that we didn't need to analyze any of the jobs that were auto-approved, yeah? Imagine if you had 100,000 cars, or 500,000 cars, or 1 million. It's really exciting technology, and it's available simply because we've been able to digitize and structure our maintenance operations. All right, so the purpose of today really is to set your imaginations and your knowledge in and around how different AI technologies can come together to create incredible outcomes. We believe that multilingual scribe technology, which is kind of what you just saw, has the ability to improve scalability, desirability, and profitability for some of the biggest fleet management companies in the world. AI, voice, OCR, translating manual, unstructured data processes into structured SMR data will eliminate the language and the local friction points that are required to set up individual maintenance teams in every location that you want to operate in. The scribe technology would enable you to simultaneously scale into new growth markets cost effectively. The cross-border visibility and reporting will be hugely attractive to multinational and global customers. And the richer data has the potential to significantly improve your total cost of ownership and even sharpen your lease pricing simply because you have better, more accurate data. And the synchronicity is the key. You know, we've sat in IFMI meetings in APAC 2 years in a row. We had the pleasure of seeing them in Fleet Europe. The same problems exist globally, whether we're in a growth market like APAC or a mature market like Europe. What is really interesting in my mind, though, is when we start talking about the paradigm shift that could happen if you could have centralized hubs for managing these processes. Think about the tourism industry, which is actually the industry that I came from, and I can tell you now that Malaysia and Philippines were transformative for booking operations for the APAC region, yeah? And I worked for many of those companies that were utilizing those services, and it was extraordinary. The other thing is automation will improve your capital cost of people. We are currently sitting at 35% average auto approvals, with some customers at 70%. And that is simply because we know how much the job should cost. We can get the data on whether we believe that it is a due service, a correct service, the predictability of that. And as long as the cost is below or equal to the peer median, we can be confident that it's a good price. And therefore, lower cost and better cost controls will help drive bigger margins. We are already building the digital data set required to scale what we've done in Australia and New Zealand into Japan. And the delta between the vehicles on Japanese roads versus Australia and New Zealand is not as big as we thought it might have been, because your grey imports are all over our market. So once we can create the data set to enable good decisioning, repeatable outcomes, then this technology all of a sudden becomes available to one of the largest markets globally. And we believe the same lessons, the same techniques, the same technology will also be transformative in every one of the growing markets in APAC. We're really excited about the transformation that's happening at a practical level because of multilingual AI. And our vision as a business is to build a universal layer that would allow us to do the same thing globally. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Eden, thank you for the impressive live demo. Before you go, one question for you. If AI agents, like you demonstrated here, continue to evolve at their current pace, what is the one role or process in fleet management that you believe will disappear entirely in the upcoming years?
So there's something I very strongly believe. The human is the trust layer, yeah? You can't sue the code. Fleets are incredibly complex asset pools that are worth significant dollars that carry huge amounts of risk. So it's not whether or not the human will stay in the loop, they absolutely will. It's whether or not a single person can manage 1,000 vehicles or 100,000 vehicles. I think it's actually about scaling our capacity rather than replacing us. Does that make sense? And you know, from what I understand from the fleet industry and where society is going, this category is growing. And I bet you every one of the major fleet managers in this room, one of their biggest challenges is keeping up with the pace. So AI has the potential. You know, you think about the Japanese market, and Rocky-san made a very poignant comment in the advisory group in and around, you know, a lot of societies are contracting their labour force. It's obviously very pronounced in Japan, but we actually need AI. We need to become more efficient. We need to get more done with the same resources that we have, and we need to make better decisions. So I don't feel like AI is the boogeyman coming for my job. In fact, I've doubled my staff and I'm spending twice as much on them. And we're doing, just like Neil said, 2 to 3 times more than we were a year ago.
Congratulations. Thank you very much for the live demo.